Hey guys, it's Matt. The last video that was put on, the last video that was put on freevoice.io made fun of the ridiculous presentation that was given to us regarding what happened or didn't happen in the gambling town. It was like 5 years ago, I don't know. But the ridiculous participants, like Mike and his buddy, the important point is what we're going to do now. And whether you agree with all the points I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to basically say it's some sort of what happened is some sort of reality breakdown. Because in these events, you just can't explain away how they put all the pieces together. It can't be explained away. But even if you don't agree with all the places I'm going to go, calling events like that a reality breakdown because there's no way to explain how this was coordinated, how this person was in it, and how this person coordinated with this person, then at least we can agree that the most important point is to apply the three steps. And once you see step one, that everything, excuse me, I was just petting cats and I've got hairs. Once you see that step one, once you get to step one, that everything is basically fake, a manipulation, a deception, a way to draw you into a bigger rabbit hole. Once you get there, then the reality will lay as many breadcrumbs as it needs to get you kind of hooked into step one. So you never get to step two, which is what sort of world could pull all this off, what sort of reality could pull all this off, and one that's not very real, or one where there's all sorts of things going on or mechanisms that we just don't understand. And then step three is the most important. Well, if there's a reality doing all of these things, employing techniques and mechanisms and things we don't understand, like Arthur C. Clarke's, there's no difference or indistinguishable between super high technology and magic. There's no difference. They're indistinguishable. Once you understand that, then you can understand a lot about yourself. It's like, well, why are they going to these lengths? Why is the reality itself and the minions? Why are they doing all of this? Why is this constant deception being laid down? What does that say about who I really am? So even laughing at it like we did in the last video, you can get very stuck on step one. And one of the ways that in terms of what I used to do, I mentioned for years just looked at mostly these fake events or just the overall screen and minion deception in other branching out of course into 100 other areas. The deception is not just with these types of events. Of course, it branches out into the space program and basically the whole presentation of everything, formal presentation or the academic presentation of how everything works is false. So and that's why one of the reasons it presents endless breadcrumbs because it wants you to get stuck there. But in terms of just using the bang events, in terms of how did it get me to step two and step three, well, because these events to me very quickly, and I floated this to you guys, I think 3 or 4 years ago, that they all very quickly turn into reality breakdowns on their own. Meaning, what was presented is not explainable in to me. Okay, and I'm going to try to see if present my position, see if you agree with me. What was presented to us is not possible inside the bookends of known reality or how anything we can fathom, how anything works in this place, whatever it is. So one event by itself, I can get into the reality breakdown area. Now, you might disagree and say, no, Matt, everything can be planned using just one guy talking to one girl, talking to one guy, planning it out on paper, mapping it out, getting everybody in on it, signing their waivers and disclaimers, paid and threatened. It all can be coordinated. You don't understand the people you're dealing with here. Okay, maybe one event could be. Maybe one event could be. If the gambling town was all they did for 10 years, was planned meticulously. They got all the right people in place. They had a whole army on the back end, like the Adjustment Bureau, tying up all the loose ends. They were able to. Oh, one person that was involved and was participating. They're tweeting out that, and we need to shut that person's internet access off, and they're just monitoring it. If it was just one event, you could convince me it could be done. If all there was was the captain, El Capitan, the Robin Williams movie with Dustin Hoffman, Captain Hook. If that's all there was, you could say they took years. They could talk about. I don't even want to say the words. I don't know what's going to allow this video to go out or not. So, you've heard all the stories about. Excuse me, this isn't symbolism. I've been petting the cats, and I'm very used to be allergic. That's symbolism. I have to apologize every damn time I scratch my face. Um, they said they moved in all the people were moved in positions years ago. They were all given their homes on Christmas. Their mortgages were paid off. We heard all those stories about Al Capitan and the Dustin Hoffman movie Hook. Then they said, it was isolated little part of that state, and just was one little area they were able to control. And okay, if that's all it was, but you have to understand, there's been 8 to 10 major events like that. That would be pretty hard to get. Now you have 10,000 people that's in some way are involved, directly involved, as catastrophe thespians. But if you expand the fake event list out to like what Chuck P again and again put together the list of all the potential fake ones, and it's like 100 things long. And I generally agree with his list because the ones I used to just study this stuff, and the ones that I knew of that most people wouldn't know, where it was somewhat obscure, I was like, yeah, that's fake. Yeah, that's fake. And so I have to assume, because we never go far enough, that his list is pretty much accurate. For example, I'll give you an example. This thing happened at Ohio State. Most people have no idea what I'm talking about. I looked at it very, very closely for 2 days. This similar type event, not nearly as mass, whatever, a few injured, a few killed, whatever. I don't know. I don't remember the details, but I remember very clearly looking at the Ohio State thing, going, "This is ridiculous. I mean, this is nothing happened here. Just complete BS." And so when I'm looking at Chuck's list, Chuck P again and again's list of 100 things, the obscure ones that I knew about, I'm like, yeah, that didn't happen. So I have to assume pretty much his whole list is correct because that is what they do. That's the nature of what we're dealing with. Is the nature of what we're dealing with honesty and real news, or everything faked and a giant manipulation? That's the nature of it anyway. So he's Chuck P again. Again's probably not going far enough. It's probably hundreds of things more than that. Well, what kind of reality could pull all that off? So just to understand the number of people involved just in the gambling thing we looked at in the last video, we made fun of the buddy. Just that by itself, hundreds of people's faces that show up on images, videos, still images. Who are these people? They all signed the waiver. Nobody leaked anything. Okay, well, Matt, someone said, well, Matt, it's CGI. It's CGI. They can, like you've said, Matt, they can fake anything for 20 years and make it look 100% real, of course. Okay, even if it is all CGI except for Mike, well, he might not be real, but I mean, in terms of a real spirited human, the way you are, he might be something else. But we'll talk about the certain minion class being a different type of incarnation. We'll talk about that some other time. So yeah, Matt, you're assuming all these people, the CGI, the people climbing over the fence, nobody was there. Mike's involved, a few people. Okay, but again, the reality breakdown comes very quickly if you just go down. Don't step on the keyboard. If you just go down the line, still recording? Yeah. Keep going down the line. An event of that magnitude, every single firefighter, first responder, police officer, sheriff for the municipal Vegas and surrounding areas, everybody would have come. Everybody would have come. I don't know what many people that would be. For 300, 400, 500 people. How'd they keep them quiet? Well, Matt, it is impossible for all those first, for them all to be in on it and know nothing happened. Therefore, Matt, it happened. Well, no, okay? When you see Mike by himself, what else do you need to see? It didn't happen. The guy bouncing he just walks out of the hospital. It's like, so you have two lodged on either side of the spine. Yep, I'm just going home. Yep. It's not possible. What else do you need to see? Guys holding their drinks as the machine gun. I paid $10 for this drink. What do you need to see? It didn't happen. So, reality breakdowns sneak in. How did Matt? You don't understand these people that work in city government or first responders, fire, police. They need their pension. They're all threatened. They're all completely quiet. They all know. Every firefighter in Vegas, every police officer, every first responder knows nothing happened, and they're just going to be quiet till their grave. I have, again, if that was the only thing that they've planned for 10 years, and they've got a whole army of people to this day still minding the store on people, making sure they're walking the line, I could see that. But how would they have the resources to pull 10 major events off and 100 smaller ones? And then be faking the space program at the same time, and 100 other areas where they fake everything with everybody having to be in on it. It very quickly gets into reality breakdown. That we've talked about this many times. The hospitals, the two major hospitals in that city where people gamble. Everybody would have been called in. Every resident, orderly, lab technician, X-ray technician, what is it? Surgeon. Was it resident and intern? Intern is the one I'm missing. Plus everybody else. They would have all come in the middle of the night, emergency call. Nobody shows up. Well, Matt, you don't understand how everybody can be paid and threatened. I don't buy that anymore. There's something else going on we don't understand. Well, what is it? I don't know what it is. It's just this is what we're born into, this world, this realm, this place. We just think reality's inside these bookends. It's not in here. There's something else going on that can't be explained. I mean, once you want to go there, anything's on the table. Anything's on the table. It's like somebody said, "Well, Matt, I know somebody who is a first responder, and it was bloody, man. They were there. I mean, maybe it's possible, but then to us, the reality we investigate is complete fake presentation. Why? Was there an event where people were really injured? I don't think so. Okay, I'm just saying anything's on the table once you allow yourself to go outside the bookends. Anything's on the table. Was there something that happened? Maybe to that, not that, maybe, not hundreds were injured or but shot, but even that would be a reality breakdown. So 10 people were whatever, but then the people in the hospitals are going on the news. It's saying hundreds, and there's 10 guys in here, 10 girls. It just doesn't make any sense. How you understand, guys? There's something, and again, once all I would need, if I'm trying to make an appeal to you or like make a presentation to you, the jury, all I would ask you to do is I would say to you, we don't have to agree. You just have to come back and basically, we don't have to agree on the specifics. In other words, you could just say, Matt, at the very basic level, I agree with you that something else in terms of a reality manipulation, some sort of means or mechanism, dark magic, a spell, mind control, things outside the known reality, something's going on to explain that event. And see, if you're even close with that one, bring in all the thousands and tens of thousands of other things that have been faked. The setup of World War One. I mean, it's all perfect. Nothing's ever leaked. It's all the story's accepted in the mainstream. Nobody ever steps up a major person in the mainstream and says, this is ridiculous. I'm not accepting this. It's all too perfect. It's all too perfect. The presentation of the reality in terms of how people go along with it. So I would just ask you to say to agree with me on the first step, that something else is going on outside of our perception. If you want to think that there's in every single case, thousands and thousands of times now, everybody's paid, threatened, signed the waiver, everybody's just quiet, never a leak in 50 years, and never a win for the truth community. If you want to just explain it away about what you understand in the little bookends, go ahead. But I don't think most people would do that here. Just the exercise of how there's only 10 to 12 or 14 videos of something happening to South Tower when Greg and I did the numbers. There should be minimum 300 to 500 videos and include up to 1,000 things. If you include still images, up to 1,000, we have 12 to 14. And, well, Matt, nothing happened. There's no, the plane, boss, the plane. There was no planes, boss. Yeah, there was no, yeah, I agree there was no, but it still doesn't matter. Then there still should be 1,000 images of it just blowing up with no nothing in the vicinity. So there still should be the video evidence either way should be there. You understand what I'm saying? That by itself is a complete reality breakdown. Reality breakdown. Something is going on outside the known bookends of anything we can possibly fathom or understand. Just from again, there's hundreds of foreign news outlets in Lower Manhattan. The word came very quick. Matt Lauer, he's like, something's happening at the top of the World Trade Center. He said it right on air, right away. Those news agencies would have rolled. Where'd that word come from in my presentation? They would have, it's all, there's so many parts of us that just come out without us even being consciously aware. Of course, that's where that came from. I didn't consciously think to say that. But these news outlets, news outlet from Rio de Janeiro has an office in New York. News outlet from the top two news, well, probably one in Moscow has an outlet in New York. London, BBC, they're in New York. Tokyo, they're in New York. All the news, they would have all grabbed their cameras and pointed it in the general direction. Just from the foreign news outlets, there should be 150 images, video images of something happened to the South Tower, because they would have gone into motion when they got the news. Then they would have had roughly 12 to 15 minutes before the second whatever happened to South. So potentially 150 just from foreign news outlets or local or other news outlets that should have been there. Where was the WB, CNN, CNBC, Fox? CNBC has to keep covering the stock market. All you got to do is step outside, go a block up, and shine it to the WTC. No, we have to keep this camera on the big board. Everybody would have mobilized. What about the 30,000 tourists that were in Lower Manhattan? Do they come with cameras? And even if they're still images, they have the people. I'm not saying from what country or whatever, but they come with their Olympus, Nikon. You can shoot like snap, 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 snap. You can do it fast. Even if you have a still camera, I know there were no cell phone cameras at the time, but you have a good, $1,000 Olympus. You're a tourist from Asia, and something's coming in. You snap, 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 snap. You could rattle off a snap every half second. None of that exists. Well, Matt, people trying to talk to me, Matt, let's say you had something. Who are they going to give it to? Well, yeah, I understand. They give it to CNN. They're not just going to be like, look what we have. Let's put that on air. It'll go to CNN. Then they'll pay you $500 for your stuff, and then they'll never air it. But see, in every case, the Adjustment Bureau came in and they have everything sealed up perfectly. Everything all sealed up. Nobody was able to just on their own put something out to a website or live leak or a YouTube video. YouTube bot 7, 10, 12 years ago is going to know exactly what somebody's posting, and then nobody can screenshot it. The Adjustment Bureaus come in and just sealed up every loose end on all those people in Lower Manhattan that got an image of something. It's a reality breakdown, and this sort of thing happens with just from the hospitals alone. Well, the news, here's the big there's a big TV here in the ICU or the emergency room, not the ICU, the emergency room, and we should be expecting hundreds, but nobody's. Here's a guy coming in with a bottle of ketchup. Nobody's coming in. Well, here comes the men in black, and they're going to sign this waiver and paid and threatened. It doesn't make any sense. Even in the one event, if it does, we've seen hundreds. And then if you apply into the space program and all the thousands of things that have been set up by this reality and rigged, and the story of why the United States were involved in World War I, the rigged story to get the United States a surge back into Vietnam from the Gulf of Tonkin. Everybody's in on it. Nobody ever leaks anything. The truth community never gets a win. Decade after decade, there's something else going on. I guess if this was my closing argument to the jury, I don't know how many people would be ready to convict OJ or not. I don't know. But you understand. There's just, when you've done this as long as I have and many of you, people are going, okay, Matt, yes, we've seen enough. Okay, we agree. There's shit going on here. And all that's important, once you understand that, then, you just jump to step 2. Leave the step 1 behind, the magic trick, the manipulation, the deception. It's going to keep dangling those carrots. Excuse me. I just keep there's cat hair all over my shirt, so it's not helping. Once you get past step 1, what kind of a world or environment or earth or realm could pull all this stuff off and using means we don't understand, and things that are happening outside the bookends, and something we can't fathom. But why is it doing it? Because it wants something from us. What does that tell you about yourself? That's all you need to know. All this manipulation, all this lies and perfect crafted deception. Most people buy it, all to get something from a human being, all to get something from a human being collective, and even from an individual. And if that doesn't tell you all you need to know about yourself, tells you you're completely immortal. This is just one small aspect of your uh, overall existence. You always have been, always will be. It tells you not to take life seriously. This life is an absolute joke. It's an absolute 1 second train stop. There's entities here, reality itself working through its minions, trying to suck negative energy out of you. Loosh is trying to get you worried. It's trying to get you scared. It's trying to get you fear. By itself, you could say it wants me to be in a state of fear, so I'm not going to give it. And what if reality is trying to suck something out of me, what does that say about me or you? That's all you need to know. But it's fun to make fun of Mike, and it's fun to ponder this, like what exactly is going on. What exactly reality buttons and levers do they have access to? How do they pull this off, or is it more on the back end, like the Adjustment Bureau? And sorry guys, I was petting these cats, and it's just I shouldn't do that before making a video. But guys, one thing to consider on the back end is just this theory of time. And I rigged up this highly sophisticated prop for this video. It's a little washer, acts as a weight, and this is an unopened roll of duct tape. We get highly sophisticated. But my theory is this is the now moment, or let's say this is the future. The now moment is here, high up, and this is the past, all down. I think it's all connected. I think the past, present, future is all connected. And it's like, oh, what happened in the past, that can't be changed. No, it's all connected. I think they know this. I think they know if they screw with the window, I know is tough. Oh, that might be better. If the window, well, sorry, not the window. If they, I think they know that retrocausalities are possible, and that past, present, future all tied together, like just bound together, like this rope is one thing. And the more evidence, the more things we look at. I'm a big believer in retrocausality. And if you're Mandela affected, you go, yeah, I mean, the past is. Somebody might say that's Mandela effect. I have 5, 7 anchor effects where I know something was a different way. So those people, Mandela affected people, don't need to be convinced of this. But if it works this way, guys, and like there's obviously we know there's no such thing as time. It's somehow it's all time is all laid down on top of itself, or at least all connected. So in terms of how this stuff that comes up, which we call potential or retrocausality, that the past is changing based on their current actions in the present or the recent present. It might work like this, all right? And I'll show you this in a second. An example could be the Peter Stuyvesant commercial with the 6 or 7 7-Eleven job application references. And what do we have now? We have in some way the 7-Eleven event referenced in some sort of predictive programming in 1,000 things, literally. And I say 1,000 things because we're still discovering them weekly. I was watching Groundhog Day the other day, and what was it? When they're coming from Pittsburgh going to Punxsutawney, they get on Route 119 North. 119. It's the Back to the Future coding. 119 North. And but it's like, well then, yeah, how's that called in or whatever? See, it's not. It just flows through. It's some sort of retrocausality, or it flows through the art, and it's not. It's a real. You could go out there and drive from Pittsburgh to Punxsutawney. I guarantee you, there's probably a Route 119 North that gets you close to Punxsutawney. It's not like they faked the sign or somebody called it in. How this happens. To me, I'm so far beyond saying it's just called in and somebody gets their marching orders and somebody at Tavistock makes a phone call, or somebody in some secret society. It's the means of it happening, the mechanism in terms of how it weaves all this programming and predictive programming and synchronicities weave through art, mostly weave through reality itself, but mostly through art, is beyond these first grade examples of everybody calling it in all the time. And one way it could be happening is this. Let me do this. I think they understand time better than we do, whatever these minions are, whatever, maybe they're a different type of incarnation. We'll talk about that some other time. They carry a memory of past lives, potentially. They carry ancient knowledge that we come in with a complete mind wipe. We're at a disadvantage. But, okay, say this weight up here is the future. I'm just using this as a weight. This is the now moment's very, very high. All right. If I block my eye or whatever, it's not on purpose. All right. I'm doing the best I can here. So the now moment, let's just say something, there's a plane crash, something relatively minor, and that affects the now moment. I'm pulling it over. But see what happens to the bottom of the rope? Absolutely nothing happens to the bottom of the rope. The past isn't affected. The event wasn't big enough, whether it be a plane crash or something, a shooting in North Philadelphia or whatever. Again, I'm affecting the now moment. I'm pulling it. But what happened to all of time, everything down? Nothing really. Somehow when the event that is massive, like the 7/11 event, where you have a billion potential consciousness focused on it, or what's going on now with, I'm surprised there aren't more of these synchronicities or retrocausalities, what's happening now, because this event now is bigger than the 7/11 job application. It's like this. Okay, a major event on the now moment. Look what happens. Boom! It's so massive. The now moment is like a huge shift, but look what happens to the rope at the bottom. See it moving? It's all of the past is being affected if this rope represents time in some way. And as you at the past close the recent past here is affected much more than all the way down here. Down at the bottom, the ancient history is barely, this thing is barely moving at all. But the recent past, watch the string below move, is moving. At the bottom, though, it's not really moving. It's still kind of in the center. All right, it's not rippling back that far, but it will if the event is massive enough. Again, it has to be a massive event. I think again, if it's a small event or a plane crash or something, see if you can, I can pull this off to the side, and there's really no effect on this rope or anything at the bottom or time. That is, look, not highly sophisticated. It's the best I can do for right now. But the main point is, and whether you will ponder this or buy this or agree to think on this idea or to give it some consideration, you will or you won't, based on if you believe that the past, present, future are all bound in some way, like this rope and this whole thing is bound together. I can't snap this up without this being affected. I really, the evidence is very, very, it's not overwhelming yet, but it all aligns up that it is tied together, past, present, and future, with every little bit of circumstantial evidence that we get. If you believe that, Matt, you just, here's an offer from Verizon. They keep wanting me to upgrade my 12 or 14-year-old flip phone. I dropped it. That happened, and there's nothing that can change what just happened, and this is never going to turn a different color, and if it was recorded, the recording will never change, and it's just in the past. And if you believe that, then this theory isn't going to go anywhere with you. But the only reason, there's no way we can observe this just by looking around us. The only reason I could even come up with a theory like this, it's not that much different than anybody that's talked about retrocausality or Mandela effect, that people should agree with this. But the only reason to be pondering this is when you've seen, maybe it's just predictive programming or other examples, when you now have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things that line up that show you the past couldn't have been like that. It had to have changed. And I'm not even talking about the Mandela effect. I'm talking about something like the Peter Stuyvesant cigarette commercial with 6 or 7 7-Eleven references in a little 45-second to minute commercial. It was some 2-bit commercial that was shown to movie theater audiences in Europe, and nobody called it in. Nobody Nobody called in. Make sure you show the Twin Towers. Nobody said, make sure you make a derogative comment about the Great Unwashed as you're flying over, using the footage flying over the Rockefeller Center. Make a derogatory comment about the Great Unwashed and reference the World Trade Center the moment the camera is panning over Rockefeller Center. There's just it's not called. Nobody called all that in for some two-bit commercial in the late '70s. And we have like so many of these types of examples now. The only thing you could come up with is coincidence. Matt, yeah, they just decided to film. They came out of the boutique and stood right in front of the giant sculpture, the red sculpture of the Nine. And it just happened that there's this huge sculpture of the Nine, but then the what makes the other number is the actual towers themselves in the background. It's just a coincidence. The way they were, it could happen to anybody. Okay, if it by itself to get all those references in the Peter Stuyvesant commercial is to make it to be at all coincidence, it's like 1 in 1,000 minimum. It might be 1 in 10,000. Be like, well, Matt, of course they'd want to have dinner in Brooklyn because then they get the skyline in the background. I'm like, why would they? Why would they? They're in Manhattan. It's about this posh lifestyle of smoking your Peter Stuyvesants. Why would they come to Brooklyn? Because they want to. Yeah, well, they did. They wanted the scene of the WTC in the background without even knowing, and it's brief. I'm saying it's not a coincidence. You just can't. And even if you could explain the Peter Stuyvesant commercial away as just coincidence, then um, I was going to say the program for The Simpsons, and people say, well, Matt, that's called in. Well, that probably is, and that's something you would favor, just being planned out, or how they use The Simpsons, or called in, or whatever Matt Groening, whatever that creep's role is in all of this, or whatever that. But then we have so many of these, so many of these, like Coming to America 1. I saw Coming to America 2 recently, guys, and I'll just say, if you have no expectations and you love Coming to America 1 and you're just going to just scene by scene just laugh at it, have a beer and have no expectations, it's just a complete clown show trying to very cheaply, just bringing up the old nostalgia of what the first movie was. And if you can take a lot of pleasure in that. There are many scenes I found very, very funny. It's right from the beginning. I said I'm not going to expect too much of this. I love the first movie, and just to experience these characters again, I'm going to enjoy this. And I really did. I really did. And it's many people would think it's horrible with cheap laughs, but I think if you have the right mindset, it's a lot of fun. But the reason I was going to say was it's on Prime. It's on Prime. It's a Prime exclusive, Coming to America 2. I was going to say Coming to America 1, when he's taking Lisa out to dinner, right before he gives the money to Randolph and Mortimer, the Duke and Duke, they bring the characters back from trading places. They're homeless, having been ruined. Duke and Duke, you know, the trading. See, here's it all. It's all. I mean, I didn't even think of this, but it all weaves together with the WTC. Let me just get the main point out because I'm now all over the place. Sorry. Um, he's walking with Lisa to go to dinner. Right before again he gives them money, and there off in the background is the WTC off in the background. I guess they're in Brooklyn, like where they shot the Peter Stuyvesant, probably the same restaurant. And she makes some weird, as soon as it's like right behind her, the WTC, she makes some strange hand gesture, but he turns and he looks right up at it. And I know this is not the greatest example, but we have so many of these. Again, I'm doing this video on the fly, and I didn't prepare these examples. We have so many of them now that just to explain them all away as a coincidence is, how many things do you need to see before it's not a coincidence? He looks right up at it the moment they're centered behind. Now, I don't think he was told, Eddie Murphy playing Akeem, make sure that this moment, we're going to draw a big X in spray paint. When you step across it, make sure you look right up at the Twin Towers. Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams. I don't know if it's the Twin Towers. It's a big building that looks right. He looks right up at the building, and like this futuristic plane goes right into it. We might have 1,000 of these types of things at this point. Um, it's just endless. The Groundhog Day, first time he comes out of his room. after the "I Got You, Babe," the Sonny and Cher. He walks across the corridor, down the steps, and the guy's like, "You off to see the groundhog today?" And he has that confrontation with that guy. Not quite a confrontation, but he walks across the corridor, and there are the two pillars behind him, which are candles in like some sort of stained glass. And the point is, it's still worth talking about, even just from that, because it's associated with Groundhog Day, a huge truth drop movie. But the first time he comes out, he looks right at the two huge candles, which are like the two pillars. Now, did they say, "Bill, remember to look at the pillars"? I don't know how this happens. There's things we don't understand, but it's not all coincidence. Obviously, in any one example, if I showed that to my cousin, like, well, it's nothing. Any one of these things on their own is easily explained away as just some random occurrence, some random coincidence. But if you've looked at this over 10 years and they just add up and they add up, you very quickly get into a probability set where, you know, again, once it becomes 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, 1 in a million, it's no longer a coincidence. With this sort of research, we go 1 into millions very, very quickly. The chance of the eclipse is 1 in a trillion, so there's no way that could just be two bodies, just happen to be passed one on top of each other, same per perspective, same size. It's 1 in a trillion. And I got to remind people, one of my favorite examples of all time is, you come out of the subway in Brooklyn and some guy's like flip 10 heads in a row. He's like, "I bet you I can do it again, flip 10 in a row." Nobody would do that. Nobody would take that bet. It was some sort of a street hustler. It was a fake coin. So he's like, "I bet you I just flipped 10 heads in a row. I bet you I can do it again. Put your $50 up." Nobody would do it. Yet the chances of him flipping 10 heads in a row are magnitudes, magnitudes, magnitudes greater than all these things being pulled off with nobody ever leaking anything, with the eclipse being what it is, all of the stuff reality presents. That's a 1 in a million. That's a 1 in a billion. Oh, the eclipse is a 1 in a trillion. That's a 1 in a billion. People accept all this, but then they'll come out of the subway and be like, "I'm not gonna give you $50. That's just the chances of him doing it are way better than all of reality as is presented. But this over here is all to be believed. But the street hustler, these are the street hustlers. The real street hustlers are the guy on the Yanker, the creep, the plastic man, David Muir, on the ABC News. These are the real street hustlers. People will never get it. People will never get it. Not you guys, of course. It's the zombies around us. I remember what my cousin said about Colombia. She said, what did she say? We say, well, to maintain social distance, we put our arms out and we call it like zombie walking or zombie spacing. It's like the word that came out of me, like the "let's roll." That's the little bit of real person, like squeaking out, coming out, flowing out through her email, like the way reality flows out through art. Saying what a coincidence. The biggest one of all my family and friends are all normies that believe every bit of the news, but a complete normie's talking about or creating a reference where people are being zombified by what the protocols or what they're being asked to do. The little baby's a little bit of real person in everybody trying to get out. I don't know. Thanks for listening, guys. I will do another at some point. We'll do another nostalgia revisit with another catastrophe thespian. Um, you know, regarding Mike, it's like my cousin Vinny. I got no more use for this guy, Mike. We'll go on to another catastrophe thespian, one of my real favorites, like Chris.